Good day. My name is Joseph Fern. I'm the Vice President of Technical Services here at Windmill. And we're here today to talk to you and demonstrate a product called EasyClearance. EasyClearance automates the processing of commercial invoice for custom brokers. It can be deployed on-premise or on our cloud. The solution supports you only sending those documents where a specific vendor-importer relationship qualifies for strong OCR extraction. It allows users to very quickly validate those commercial invoice, and they train those documents. So the next time that vendor importer sends another document, it's pre-trained and ready to go. Here's a little bit about our flow of this solution. So the solution starts off in your system. You're receiving an email from either the carrier or the customer themselves, and here's my commercial invoice, my manifest, bill of lading, or other documentation that comes with it. They create usually a skeleton in your backend systems and identify a flag to say, let's send this to Windmill. Windmill will then run an OCR optical character recognition to try to read all the different line items on that commercial invoice. The user then can validate those fields in case we read a character wrong or missed a couple lines, or just maybe couldn't identify a country of origin, a particular column, and the users can just click with their mouse and train that document. Once it's trained, we're actually storing a knowledge base. There's some AI and some machine learning where we're learning what behavior the user did to find all those different fields off of that document. And we're putting in a knowledge base to make sure the next time that vendor sends another large commercial invoice, we're even more automated. We don't need to teach it the same things twice. We then have the ability to send you that transaction back with all those line items for you to complete that shipment in your systems. Whatever entry, whatever audit and billing happens in your current system, we're not building those functions. We're just going to do it with all the data pre-populated. Makes it a little more like an EDI transaction. Let's dive right in. Let's log into EasyClearance, and I'll show you the process. This is going to be a new application where your users log in to actually process those transactions. They're going to train the commercial invoice and get rid of any errors that may have come from OCR mistakes. You can see here we've got a login screen that will be provided to the users. They're going to click login. And the first thing they're going to see is going to see a queue. So this screen we call the work queue, and it shows to the left a variety of shared queues. Transactions that need to be followed up. We're allowed to create filters for custom ones. For this case, we just have the EasyClearance validation queue. And what you can see to the right is two actual documents sent over to EasyClearance to be validated and completed. We're going to click into, and you can see a few header fields from that pre-training. So that header information that was keyed in advance, where we can see the transaction, we can see that vendor number that was keyed, and we're just going to log right in, click one of the documents. And inside this document, what you see is to the far right, you're going to see, so I'm just going to click no to that so we don't complete it. Now, this is a document that's already been trained. The system has seen this commercial invoice. The user has actually clicked on the fields and said, I'm going to teach you where my part number, where my quantity is. So the second time we receive this document, as you can see, it's a 5-page document, a very painful one to key line by line. And you can see in the middle, we've actually lifted all of these different fields. Users with a double screen monitor, they can actually pop out this image, put it on the monitor to the right so they can see it nicely zoomed in. But for now, we're going to zoom in. At the top of the document, you can see we've got two tabs, our line items and header. In that header tab is information the user really doesn't have to see, but they can reference it back to the transaction that they're working on. On the line items tab, we've got a few header fields, the invoice number, the edit extracted, you can see where we got it from, an invoice date, which we also picked up from that right spot, the currency of the invoice, and then we get really into the meat of the commercial invoices, which is these lines, the repetitive motion. As you can see, we've extracted them, and not only did we extract them, but it actually highlighted to the right each individual row that we pulled off. In this particular case, it was 56 rows that ended up summing to over 92,000. So as you flick through the page, you can see quickly it's showing you where I received that line items in case the system couldn't pick one up. Now, we're going to pretend the system hasn't seen this document before, that it did not train it. It's the first time that this particular vendor is working with you. And we want to show you even that first transaction shows value. So during that first transaction, you can actually just teach it one row by clicking and lassoing it. So I clicked the part number, we clicked the quantity, we clicked the gross weight, unit of measure, clicked the unit price, clicked the line price, only of that first row. And then what we're going to do is something called interpolate, where we're going to take that and say, okay, now that I showed you one row, go and loop through all the rest of the pages of this document, including going page 2, 3 to 5, and find that trend, those common fields that exist row by row. And as you can see, just from teaching that one document, just going to hit no to this message so we can zoom back into it, it pulled off all of those different lines right on the fly. Now, it actually did a couple things. We taught it one line so it can receive the rest, but it also learned for the next time I do a commercial invoice, here is what these rows and columns look like. System has automatic rules to double check the amount. So it's got an accounting check. If for some reason I missed one row for $1,000, then the sum of the lines won't equal the grand total. And the system will warn you and say, hey, we're missing a line, and you can use the highlights to be able to find it. Right now, we discussed we're going to mark this for online learning to make sure that the next time it's trained, it's ready to go, and it's even more automated. And just like that, we've completed a 53-line entry. While this transaction is actually being sent back to the line of business system, we're going to see the next document that's in queue. We're opening up that document now. This one's an even larger document. It was 19 pages. As you can see, some variety in how the columns and rows are looking. I'll just click no to that. And just like before, and I like this example because sometimes it used columns, the rows were to the right, but sometimes fields were down below. We're going to extract the invoice number, invoice date, lift those off of the documents, lift up those part numbers, quantities, unit price, total price. Again, this document was pre-trained. Country of origin, as you can see, was actually below, pre-trained and ready to go in this particular scenario. Total amount was picked up, and again, total amount is used for that accounting rule to make sure the sum of those lines do equal a total. Really protects you from any quality issues because you can have variety. Maybe somebody hand wrote an additional line item last minute. Again, we can sit there. This particular transaction was marked for learning. That's why we saw it before. Usually these clients are complete, and we can just say complete the transaction, and it's done. So you saw two examples there. One example where it was pre-trained, but we erased the training, taught it one row, and then looped through. The second example, we actually was already pre-trained, and all the data for that transaction was already pulled out, and we were able to show you to the screen. And now we're in a position where we have no more transactions to work. Those documents are now ready to go back to the line of business system. And what we do is actually we create an XML file. An email is going right to the user. We can open it up, give you an example of it, and really it's got the log of what happened and the actual data. Quickly open up the XML file, and you can see we reference back that transaction. This file, as it arrives, it'll help complete that transaction and go to the next step. I appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to look at this demonstration. If you have any more questions about the product, feel free to connect with us at windmill.services. We'd be happy to speak to you about how we can integrate into your line of business application, whether you've got an off-the-shelf product for your custom brokerage or you've built something in-house. We'd be happy to get on a call with one of our consultants, demonstrate some of your documents being processed through the tool, and discuss how we can be sending this data back and forth. Thanks again for your time.